to discuss harmonizing connections, music therapy to support individuals with autism. So Dr. Heather Wagner is an assistant professor and coordinator of the music therapy program at Southern Connecticut State University. She's been a practicing music therapist for over 25 years, working in a range of settings, and has experience working in therapeutic day school and in a community music school, both as a music therapist and as an adaptive music teacher. Heather embraces an integrative stance to therapy with a strong interest in resilience-focused approaches. Emily Bevilacqua is a board-certified music therapist equipped with almost 2 decades of experience. Through her work in private practice, Emily has developed countless school, agency, and community-based music therapy programs throughout the state of Connecticut. As a classically trained vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, and singer-songwriter, she's passionate about utilizing person-centered music experiences to enrich the lives of her clients. Emily specializes in working with clients with intellectual and physical disabilities across the lifespan, older adults with Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as children and adults with autism spectrum disorder, and adolescents with co-occurring mental health needs. Emily serves as an adjunct faculty member at Southern Connecticut State University. So we here at the Center of Excellence on Autism Spectrum Disorders, we are super excited to have them talk with us about music therapy. So take it away, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming, especially on Friday morning at 9. I know this is not, maybe it's a great way to start your last day of the work week, but I'm very pleased to be here and grateful that the Center of Excellence invited us to deliver this presentation today. I know that we're being recorded, and I know I want to be mindful of people watching the recording later, but I would love for the people in the meeting, if you would in the chat, maybe let us know where you're coming from, what your background is perhaps, and what led you to come to this presentation today, if you feel so inclined to do so. It's helpful because it helps us to sort of tailor some aspects of the presentation to who you are and why you might be here. So feel free to say hello and let us know what brought you here today and what your background is, and we'll be taking a look at that as we go. So what we'll do today, I am going to bring up this slide. There we go. This is was the description of this session, and I just want to locate us in this. This will inform the way the presentation unfolds. So we are going to talk about how music therapy, first of all, what is music therapy? I'm guessing that many of you here have some idea about what it is, but also perhaps not a full picture. That's very common. So I thought it was important to educate about what music therapy is. And then also, what do we know about music therapy in working with individuals with autism and other neurodiversity and other similar developmental needs as well. So we're going to look at research. We're going to see some clinical examples. Emily's going to share some of her anecdotal work, some anecdotes, I should say, anecdotes of her work in music therapy with people across the spectrum. So we're going to start. Thank you, Amanda. I see yours. Leslie has a wonderful music therapy graduate program as well, so good to see you. We're going to start with ourselves first. This little girl, I probably have shown this video. If you look at how many times this video has been shown, on YouTube, I probably am about half of them, because I show this video a lot when I'm presenting about music therapy, because it is such a lovely example of what music can do for us. So just to let you know, she starts in distress, but it changes. So here she is.
Let's rage.
So we will pause her there, but I'm hoping you noticed, obviously, the change in her affect when she heard what I'm assuming is one of her favorite Katy Perry songs, but also you hopefully saw the change in her body as well. So her little legs were activated rhythmically, she had her hands going. So there was the mood and emotional response, and there was also a physical response. what's also happening are a lot of things that we can't observe in her physiology as well. So if you think for yourself what your favorite song can do for you when you're either already feeling good and you want to boost that mood, or when something happens and you might need a refocus of attention or something to help you ground yourself, music can serve many roles for us as humans. So please don't be overwhelmed by all of the information on this slide. And I thank my colleague who lives in Vancouver, actually, who created this visual. I'm not going to go through every part of the brain, but I think it is helpful to have some understanding that, often when people hear that we're music therapists, they think, oh, lovely, music, it makes people happy. Yes, but it also has a great effect on our physiology and our neurology. And I think it's helpful to be aware of that so we understand why we do what we do and why it has the effect that it has. So I'm just going to focus on a couple of spaces, a couple of aspects of brain and how music can help. Music activates different parts of our brain. So in our prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functioning and decision making, music can, first of all, it activates all parts of the brain in different ways and sometimes often at the same time. But in this case as well, making music, listening to music can activate executive functioning, sorry for lack of a better word, in the brain, but also provide opportunities to practice those skills. So you saw the little girl on the last slide. So in our motor cortex, we know that it's responsible for coordinating voluntary motor functioning. And you saw the little girl, the music came on, and then she started to move. That's very common. So as it's lighting up the motor cortex, even if we're not moving physically, there can even be a sensation of movement, which is very helpful in activating different physical responses to music. Our sensory cortex, so this is, and again, I'm trying to keep this in line with typical needs of people with autism, but so integrating sensory information, and this is particularly helpful with folks who may have sensory processing disorders. So music can help activate that part of the brain and then help strengthen that functioning. And very importantly, in that emotional response, we have our limbic system, including our amygdala, which is involved in processing our emotions and helps us form memories and retrieve memories that are associated with music. Because music is often autobiographical and often connected with important parts and times in our lives, the fact that we can help strengthen those connections and build that emotional response and build emotional expression and offer opportunities for emotional expression, it can be a wonderful way to engage people in that aspect of their life and well-being as well. And in addition to this, without getting too detailed into the science here, we know that music can also impact our neurotransmitter and hormonal responses, including dopamine, serotonin, what is the right, Emily, help me?
Oxytocin?
Oxytocin, thank you. I was going to oxycodone, and we know that's not right. Oxytocin, this is why we're partners. And also with our cortisol response as well. So when we think about all that's happening in the brain, we also are aware that this has impact on us as human beings and who we are as human beings. So I know this is not an exhaustive list of the domains of human functioning, but these are probably the most commonly considered. So we've been talking already a bit about the physical and emotional aspects here, but we know that music can be used to help the body's physical engagement, whether it's fine and gross motor skills, from playing instruments, moving to music, even just tapping toes and waving fingers as part of can be our responses to music. Playing an instrument can offer opportunity to work on gross and fine motor skills. Singing can help with our respiratory functioning. And in addition, there are physiological responses such as our stress response, blood pressure, heart rate, and as I mentioned, hormonal and neurotransmitter activity. Emotionally, I think is probably what we're all most familiar with. Music can offer this ability to help us manage our thoughts and feelings, and also a way to express our thoughts and feelings too. cognitively and intellectually, so looking at knowledge, learning. So of course, there is the capacity to use learning music, whether it's singing, playing instruments, learning about music. So that stimulates our cognition, but also engagement in music. Playing music, listening to music is engaging our cognitive systems. Socially, music is a wonderful way to bring people together. And again, I'll always focus on it can be what we call receptively, so listening to music. I use this quite a bit in some of my work, not necessarily with autism, but the ability to share a song that's special to you and then talk about it, it just immediately brings people together. And when you share music with people who also like the same music as you, it's an instant connection. But also when we're making music, there's a lot of research that shows that community music making impacts the social centers of our brains, and also in talking to people and the qualitative side of it. People feel more connected. There's a greater sense of social connectedness. And you may be aware that one of the public health initiatives from the past 10 years is increasing our social connectedness because of we're starting to learn the more profound impact on our overall health that being socially connected can offer. Music can have spiritual meaning. For many people, music is part of their faith background, and whether it's organized religion or other spirituality pursuits, so to speak, that music can often be part of what's the ineffable, things that can't be expressed in other words. It can offer that sense of rising above. That transpersonal connection can happen through musical engagement, again, listening or making music. And in contextual, what I mean by that is that music is part of our culture. It can be part of the environments in which we live. It can set the tone of our environments. Music can be a way that we take care of each other, that helps nurture our connections with each other, and even in the way that we engage in the world. So it's not just a singular pursuit, but it is contextual in our life and environment. So take a moment and even consider for yourself how music is affecting you in these domains. And I always like to ask too, is there a part of who you are as a human that perhaps you can use music to help facilitate that aspect of yourself even further? So sometimes I like to think about what's missing and how can music be helpful in a way that you might be lacking in your life right now. So from there, here is the big definition of music therapy. So we're going to start generally about music therapy practice to make sure that we're understanding like what really is music therapy. And then after this, we'll have a few slides that applies it to practice with autism. So the American Music Therapy, this is our current logo, which may be undergoing a change, but it's going to take a few years. The American Music Therapy Association is in the United States, our membership organization that serves as a way to bring music therapists together and advocate for music therapy, both as a profession and as a practice. It also sets the educational standards and sort of manages that side of music therapy. So I've got some things underlined, and we're going to take a moment to talk about each one over the next few slides. So music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. So clinical and evidence-based does refer to the fact that music therapy does have an organized body of knowledge and research that supports the use of music for a variety of needs. So we music therapists publish in a variety of journals. We do have journals that are specific to music therapy, both in the United States and internationally. But music therapists also publish in a variety of other scientific journals that are interested in expanding the understanding of how music therapy affects humans as a whole. And that knowledge base is growing. I'm going to present to you later some Cochrane Review information, which is the gold standard of research. But also there's been a large push through the National Institutes of Health that has funded with the Sound Health Initiative and the Sound Health Network and the Kennedy Center that has earmarked quite a lot of money toward research in what we call music-based interventions. So it's music therapy and other applications of music. So our knowledge base is growing, and we're grateful to have more funding to help us learn more about that. We also do follow the very typical therapeutic process of referral, assessment, treatment, evaluation. So it is a systematic process of musical engagement to be able to address the clinical and human needs of clients with whom we work. So when we think about what does it mean to have music interventions, we essentially break our work into four main, what we call our methods. In these methods, there are a multitude of techniques and variations. For example, at Southern, the way we run our music therapy academic program, our students take classes. We're a methods-based program, so they take classes in each of these methods, and within the semester, we are learning all the different ways these can be applied, and then what we know about working with various people in this way, and then the research as well. So receptive is just what it sounds like. It's any use of music listening. It can be live, that the therapist is providing music, and it also can be through recordings. Recreative, notice the dash, that was added about 10 years ago because it was so close to recreation, right? We wanted to be clear that it's recreating. So this is any way that a client and or clients, perhaps with a therapist, perhaps alone, recreates pre-written music. So this can be singing, there might be therapeutic choirs, it can be learning songs and singing them, it can be having a band or some kind of a performance. So there's many different ways that people may engage in recreating pre-composed music. Whereas compositional is any way of writing music. So that might seem overwhelming, but we do it in a variety of ways that make it accessible for people of all backgrounds and abilities. It can be as simple as taking out a few words and letting clients fill in the words that are meaningful to them, all the way to writing full compositions. And even, I worked with a group of students when I worked at a therapeutic day school. We wrote a play with music. So that was a large compositional experience. And then improvisational is making music up extemporaneously. And again, it can be, a lot of you might think improvisation and think jazz and very complex chord structures. It can be, but it's often rhythm experiences where people are playing percussion instruments. It can be song improvisation where there's making up music. It can be rapping and freestyling, depending on who you're working with. So there's a wide range of how to make these accessible to people depending on their needs, skills, and interests as well. So Emily, I'm going to let you take it over here.
Thank you, Heather. So, as Heather was saying earlier, a very important part of what we do as music therapists is there's the referral, the assessment. This is not a one size fits all, like, listen to Bach and, you're going to feel better in the next morning. What we do is person centered. So, every client we work with, either individually or in a group, is assessed. And from that assessment, we create individualized goals for the individual client or the group. So music therapy experiences can be designed to meet a number of therapeutic outcomes, and often at the same time. So when we are working within music therapy, we're often reaching towards several of these individualized goal areas at the same time, promoting wellness, managing stress, alleviating pain, expressing feelings, enhancing memory, improving communication, both verbal communication and nonverbal communication, as well as promoting physical rehabilitation. And we try to not make too many assumptions about the people that we work with before really forming that relationship. Two individuals that are a similar age, seemingly have similar needs, have a similar diagnosis or the same diagnosis, could actually need very different things. And the music experiences that we create to work on the said individualized goals are going to look, sound, and feel very different depending on who we're working with. Um, where do music therapists work? We work a lot of places. So I won't read all of these to you, but you can see a list of the different kinds of settings that we work in. I have been lucky enough for the last almost 20 years to be a private practice music therapist, which my days and weeks are never boring. I am often working in some of these settings, hospitals, psych facilities, schools, nursing homes, community settings, etc., as a private practice music therapist. And I also have colleagues that are employed or work with one of these client communities or in one of these kinds of facilities. And then, oh, sorry. No, that's fine. I was just reading the rest of that slide, but I don't think there was anything that important. Um, So this Venn diagram, I think, is a really, really important visual. Music therapy is possible when the music, the client, and the therapist are all working together. Um, and then, music therapy is in that center. I like to think, um, I like to think that as a music therapist, I'm never working alone with my clients. I always have a co-therapist, and the co-therapist really is music. And I can be a dynamic clinician, but without music, music therapy is not possible. And I feel like the clients that I work with, in addition to hopefully feeling supported and safe with me, also are able to feel supported and safe intrinsically through the music making. Um, and the fact that what we're doing is so person-centered and really kind of molded around their specific needs.
Emily, may I also, I'm going to add something here if it's with your permission.
I would add what, please
Thank
add.
you. One of the things that I always like to emphasize that what makes music therapy is this, that music can be therapeutic to everyone. You can put on your favorite, like we were listening to our Spotify playlist to start our morning, and that's therapeutic, but it's not music therapy. I can make a playlist for someone and say, use this to relax, and they go home and use it. That's not music therapy. So all these, there's so much mislabeled things that they're called. Like often when anybody uses anything with music that has some therapeutic intent, they call it music therapy. But without that relationship, without that way of working together, it's really more a music-based intervention that's helpful and therapeutic and wonderful and necessary, and there's room for all of it. But it really isn't music therapist without this relationship, and then without the next slide that Emily will also cover.
Yes. So, yeah, no, thank you. That was really important information, Heather. A lot of people that like to make music or are musicians and also like to help people sometimes mislabel themselves as a music therapist or I am doing music therapy. And as music therapists, we do not own music. We are so excited and happy when other people use music as a tool to help people and enrich people's lives. However, you are not a music therapist and you are not providing music therapy services unless you have the proper credentialing, which this slide outlines. So after finishing coursework, clinical training requirements, and taking a national board certification exam, you get the credentials MTBC, which stands for Music Therapist Board Certified. And also, some states, and Connecticut included, have state licensure. So those board certified music therapists living in said states and in Connecticut then get licensure through our, local Department of Public Health. So it's really important that when you are looking to work with a music therapist, that you see these credentials, the MTBC, and then also in the state of Connecticut and in other states where licensure is available, that person also is is also licensed. Again, we don't own music. We want other people to use music in wonderful helping ways, but this is the credentialing process to make sure that you are working with someone that actually is a board certified music therapist. Heather, anything else to say about that?
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so now we'll take that now and focus more on music therapy and ASD. And I've chose some pictures. This is actually, his name is Ryan Judd. If you like, he's a guitarist. He's actually got music on Spotify, really beautiful, relaxing stuff. He does really wonderful work here in the New England region with people with autism. So I put him in there. So I hope I get to see him soon so I can let him know he made our slides today. But I think it's important to look at some of these things I think are just inherently, like, we understand them as human beings who are probably engaging in music in our everyday lives as well. Oh, Brianna, I just saw I'm gonna, let's actually, yes, let's pause this and let me tell you more about insurance state to state. So what I know right now about music therapy and third-party reimbursement. So our licensure in Connecticut was from 2023 in October. So we're now entering our second cycle and being licensed. The truth is that insurance companies wouldn't even talk to music therapists about being paneled without licensure. So that was our first step. And I would tell you the truth, it took 10 years-ish, right? Emily and I were both on the committee that served and went to the public health committee a bunch and testified sat there for hours and hours waiting to testify. So the next step now is to partner with insurance companies to work toward paneling. So we are not directly paneled with insurance companies in Connecticut yet. That is hopefully coming. But what can happen with third-party insurance, there are some Medicare, Medicaid programs that do offer music therapy as a related service for coverage. There are waiver programs in different spaces. And music therapy is recognized by the Department of Education in Connecticut as a related service on the IEP. So those are the spaces where music therapy tends to be more readily covered by insurance. And I do work, this is separate with ASD, but I do a lot of music psychotherapy work. I have a private practice where people come to me for music psychotherapy. Many adults, mostly my work is with adults with that space, who are insured can use their, I'm going to blank on what it's called, but I cannot think of what it is. When you put money aside for healthcare and then you can use that pre-tax money.
An HSA?
Yes, thank you. The healthcare savings account. Thank you. They can use that because it is viewed as a related service. So even if the insurance company does not cover it directly, you can use those funds. So the answer is, sometimes it depends on where it is and how it's being applied and in what setting. But the second part of the answer is, and we will be working more carefully, or not more carefully. That is the next step in our process, is to really get insurance companies more fully on board with reimbursement. And I'm sure you're aware what an uphill battle that is going to be, but we're going to work on it. It may not be in my career, but we're going to try. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you, Brianna. It was we learned so much that I just try to look at it through the positive lens, like what a life experience that was. And Brianna, I just want to tell you, so I'm actually at Gaylord Hospital right now in their basement. I do work here on Fridays, and I work a lot with speech and language therapists and have worked out extensively with SLPs in my career, so thank you. Okay, so why music therapy? Why might this be wonderful? So for one thing, music can be a wonderful motivator. People like music generally. Once in a while, there are folks who don't, but not so often. So we can use that interest and the responsiveness to music to help people to engage in therapeutic experiences. What we often find is that people who are maybe resistant to other treatment or just not interested in other treatment, music really might be the way in to therapy. It often doesn't feel like therapy, which I hear a lot. Like, oh, look at how these things we did, but that was really fun. Now, music isn't always fun, but it really can be. And even one thing I get really passionate about, I teach music psychology, and I get really excited about some of the things that happens to us. One of the things that I don't know, it really resonates with me is that even when music, even sad music, give me a good sad song, give me a good Adele belting out some heartbreak. Like, I love that. Even sad music we find pleasurable. So this ability for music to help motivate people to engage in some kind of connection, some kind of treatment, can be the way in. As Emily mentioned and I mentioned earlier, music is supremely adaptable. And another thing I really appreciate about it, you don't have to have any, first of all, you don't need any musical skill. We are able to adapt these experiences. And again, not necessarily relevant to autism, but I work with people who are not responsive. And the fact that music, because the auditory functioning might still be there, music can be a way to provide some kind of sensory stimulation, again, some kind of human connection that may not be possible in other spaces. It can be used with people who are nonverbal. It can be used with people who have physical disabilities that prevent movement. We really can find receptive and active experiences that can be adapted for a multitude of needs. This focus we mentioned on relationship, being musical is relationship. Being in music is being in relationship. So you're developing relationships with your therapist, with your other peers perhaps who are in the process, the relationship with music, and which are very powerful forces for social engagement. So this musical engagement can lead to attunement, that reciprocity in communication, interpersonal connections, and also developing empathy in musical experiences. This is a point you've heard Emily say a bunch of times, person-centered, and we meet clients where they are. And she also said, like, working on things at the same time. When I'm teaching, I often talk about what's the primary focus of the work. And so you're doing something primary, but all these secondary things are happening too. And in that way, when we work in music, it can be really focused on outcomes, and really specifically what we call outcomes-oriented work, which is often sort of in those behavioral terms, like increase self-expression, improve some kind of behavior, whatever, especially if we look at like IEPs, if you're familiar, like those really clearly behavioral SMART goals and outcomes. But it can also be experiential or process-oriented, in that sometimes just it's the act of making music itself where the change and growth can happen. And then the idea is that what people are doing and benefiting in the music experience transfers in to other spaces in their lives. So as they're developing a relationship with the therapist and able to take turns with peers, able to play with someone, to listen and respond musically, that hopefully that will also transfer into their ability to communicate, to work with other people, and to be in relationship beyond the music therapy setting as well. One of my favorite things, and you heard me, if you were here for my little bio, is I'm really focused on resilience, and part of resilience is resources. And music therapy can be supremely strengths focused, and not just, I'm really a big advocate for the positive psychology movement, that therapy isn't just about fixing what's wrong. It can also be about strengthening what's already good about a person. And in music, we can do that. It feels really positive to be able to focus on a strength and a resource rather than what's wrong with you. It's what's right with you, and how can we make that even more right? And music can be a wonderful way to do that. And so I come back to that, to be human is to be musical. So music is such a humanizing, normalized human activity, human experience. And if we can bring more typical life experience to people who may be therapized, it's such a wonderful way to make people feel more human and more connected. So the research, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. There is a lot of research. To be honest, we have a lot of research that is not as rigorous as it needs to be, But this Cochrane review, they updated it just in 2022, so just this is pretty new. That added some more studies. So there were a lot of studies that were excluded because of the lack of rigor. Again, we are working to improve our rigor in research. I am copying and pasting this link for you. So if you'd like to access that article I've just published, I've just put it in the chat. I hope that worked. But they found in general that they could say definitive, well, as definitive as you can be in research, that engagement in music therapy as compared to a placebo led to global improvement of functioning, so all around improvement. It led to a reduction in total autism severity. It improved quality of life, so there's that more process, experience-oriented stuff. And I think this is important to note, is that it does not increase adverse events immediately after the intervention. So even though people might be getting stimulated and getting activated and, sort of coming, perhaps being more excited being part of music, it doesn't necessarily lead to adverse experiences afterwards. So that also points to the safety of music, especially when facilitated by a trained therapist who is able to respond perhaps to events that may occur within the music therapy session. But we also know, and again, we still have room we need more validation of these results. That's the way to say it. That all of these areas, we have research that supports the use of music therapy. This is particularly with people with autism, but also beyond, to help to facilitate improvement in these goal areas. So I know, Emily, you have some clinical vignettes that maybe will illustrate some of these if you'd like to share.
So in my career as a music therapist, I've done a lot of work with individuals with autism, individually, group settings, and really across the lifespan. So very young children, adolescents, adults, and older adults. So I've had a lot of experience doing this work, and I love, love this work. So as far as communication goes, I mean, within music therapy, we are working on both nonverbal communication skills and verbal communication skills. Um, and this could be a whole course about each one of these. So I'm going to just highlight very briefly. But as far as nonverbal communication within music therapy, I've engaged clients in lots of reciprocal instrument play, kind of like mirroring, either on like a percussion instrument or maybe on like the guitar or the piano, having these musical conversations. And for lots of the individuals we work with who are nonverbal or are really working very hard to reach some speech and language skills, this kind of musical conversation and musical language is really important. I think it helps form a relationship between the therapist and the client. Also is just really great for like advocating for oneself, increasing self-esteem, those kinds of more like holistic kinds of goals. Verbal communication, similar to Heather, I've done a lot of work co-treating and collaborating with speech and language pathologists. So shout out to all of the speech and language pathologists and other allied, health professionals and therapists that we are able to co-treat and work with every day. Um, I have done a lot of work. I'm a classically trained singer, and so while most music therapists incorporate singing in their work, I tend to maybe incorporate more because it is one of my primary instruments. Through client-centered singing experiences, many of my clients have had huge success in exploring verbal communication. And I have found giant improvements with prosody of speech, intonation, and rhythm of speech through singing and also through pairing some of those goals with rhythmic intent, um, practicing multisyllabic words, short phrases, and I've seen such improvement that I've actually, many speech therapists have reached out to me if we have a client in common to say, I'd love to know what you're doing in music. I see it's making a difference. Can we collaborate? Can we co-treat? We are not, I will just make this blanket statement, we are not speech therapists. We do not claim to be speech therapists, and we would never engage in, very specific language-based work or speech and language work without also having the support of the therapist that is working with the client. But that collaborative effort, working together, just always seems to be the best way to kind of make the most gains. Um, as far as social skills can be worked on both individually between the client and the therapist. More often, I find in my work, I'm really doing a lot of social skills work in like early education, educational enrichment music therapy groups. So I'll go into schools or in a community setting. Um, the possibilities are really endless of all the different kinds of social skills we can work on in any given session, following directions, practicing appropriate greetings, turn taking between client and therapist, turn taking amongst the group members, with peers. Also, just this idea of respectful listening, honoring each other within a group. Um, and this can be done through all kinds of different music experiences, singing familiar songs, music improvisation, um, other kinds of educational learning songs that might be developed specifically for a client or for a group of clients. Heather, before I get on to any of these other ones, did you want to give any thoughts about
Yeah,
in the
you're doing
social?
so far so good.
Okay.
I am noticing our time. I have a video that I'd love to share that's about 5 minutes long, and then we just wanted to take a moment to say, like, how can we use music? So I wonder if there's maybe one more that you have
Um,
a compelling example that you
yeah,
could share.
I would say really quick. So I also do a lot of work with motor skills. Finding so we can work on both fine and gross motor skills within music therapy, body movement and dancing
Yeah.
experiences, instrument playing, isolating right hand, left hand, crossing midline, all of those kinds of things. And these are skills that can be really, really challenging. Um, and because music is often so self-engaging, um, lessens anxiety, it like Heather said, it becomes fun and creative, and things that might be really scary or challenging, they're a little bit lighter. And I
Yeah.
find that that's part of why, in addition to the fact that things are happening neurologically in our brain, if you remember those pictures of the brain and the different parts of the brain that music is, um, working with, um, it's also because of that, just that creative humanistic piece
Yeah.
that I feel like so many things that we work towards are possible.
Yeah. And I love that even when we're working on motor skills, they're also getting the social, right? They're getting that interaction with you. They're getting life well-being and life improvement because it's music and it's usually perceived as being something pleasurable. So even when you're working on those outcomes, there's always such wonderful things happening because of the inherent qualities of musical engagement. Thank you. So these are just pictures, but I specifically included two that show we do work individually and then we can work in groups. We often also include caregivers and other, it can be staff or family or siblings. There's room for everybody in our sessions, and we really do include anyone and everyone who may be invested in that person's therapy process. But what I'm going to show you, and it's about 5 minutes, so I might scrub here and there just to keep it moving so I'm seeing our time, but it's just such a lovely example. It's actually from Australia, and it's a lovely example of the use of specifically improvisation, and then later in the process using more what we call recreative therapy, music therapy, where they're singing songs to reach developmental goals, and it follows the growth of this young man, Benji, through his kind of preparing him to be able to enter school. So we'll watch at least a little bit of this, and there's just so many beautiful moments in this vignette here. And Nordoff Robbins is a particular training for music therapists of improvisation. So I'll read it. Benji was born around 18 months as speech development started to regress and his parents noticed change in his behaviors. Benji was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at the age of 2.5 years old. The challenge is that Benji and his family were now clear. Realizing the long road ahead, Benji's parents were determined to give their son every opportunity for success in life. His music therapy journey begins. Initially distressed, unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar people. So mom is present, so that family-centered care. Notice him first just peeking. What is that back there? So a little connection, a little engagement happening. And then he finally full body turning. That's a big step.
Hello, stick.
And he took the stick.
Hello, stick. Thank you. Hello, frog.
It's a little musical instrument that's a frog.
Hello. Hello, Benji. Hello, frog.
And here, listen to how her music, the music therapist music, reflects his motion. So I'm going to pause there, but you can see him connecting and the cause and response, and I do that and they're going to do it back, and now I can have some control and a little fun. And the joy, he starts to laugh. And I'm going to just bring it over to where they're then working on, there's a new co-therapist, but now they're working on some more developmental education skills.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
You can hear his Australian accent.
Wonder what you are. Well done. Come on again. Look. Hi. What have we got? It's ice. Ice cream. Tick, tick, the kettle.
They're working on their K sounds, and I always have to laugh that they're wearing shorts and Santa hats, but they're in Australia, so different hemisphere, different weather. So that, I hope that gives you you can see it in practice, and it's really beautiful work that they did with Benji to prepare him to enter school, and that's how it concludes here with their work in this video. But if we think about, so music therapy, great, right? But maybe you would like to use some of this wonderful capacity of music with autistic people, even with yourself perhaps. So what can you do? I mean, anything, right? Like sing, use the songs that can teach and learn. There's thousands of them that can be used. You can make songs up that can help with things. Really any kind of musical engagement. Can you share songs? Can you listen to music together? It depends, like, of course it depends on the needs of the person with whom you're working, but really there's no limit to what you can do. Can you sing and dance? The one thing I would say is and you would know your people better than I would, but we've just talked a little bit about sensory integration, but just to be aware of the capacity sometimes of musical engagement that can sometimes overstimulate. So one of the things as music therapists we're always watching for are those cues of when do I need to back off a little bit, when do I maybe need to quiet, when do we need a break. So just to watch for those signs that may tell you when to to keep going and when to back off. And I always suggest too is to consider that you can use music for your own well-being, especially if you're a caregiver, to consider what you need and what music can do for you as well to keep yourself well and healthy to do the work and the care that you continue to do. So those are just some examples. But also you may be wondering, well, I think I really would like to have a music therapist, whether it's with people in your life or whether it's at a facility that you may work. And there are some resources that you can access. I'm going to drop a few in the chat here. The first is this credentialing board for music therapists, or the certification board for music therapists. That's the organization that manages that does our testing, and we get our board certified credential from them. And they have a list of music therapists by state. And what's weird about it though is they do not have email addresses. So often what you do is you find someone's name who is in your location and you can Google, Google's your best friend, and find us. And then often what happens, like I can no longer take on clients because of my full-time job at Southern, but I can help find music therapists that you might be able to work with. Oops, did I drop CBMT in there twice? Let me try this again. Our membership organization is the Music Therapy Organization, the association. I'll be honest and say that we have, it's a membership organization, so it's not the most accurate list of the music therapists practicing in any given area. The CBMT is better, but it has more contact information, so that's helpful. And the other place now is our e-license lookup. You can look at to see who is licensed in the state of Connecticut, and it will generate you a roster. We are under behavioral, mental health, and substance abuse care. I'll also put that in here. So when you're looking for us, that's the drop-down menu that you have to look for to find music therapy. That's where they've classified us. So you can find us there, and also, to be honest, you can find me here. So this is actually a QR code about our program. If you're interested in our academic program at Southern, we're in our 3rd year and growing. And if you have questions or anything that I can help you with, I basically serve as a resource. I'm helping to develop programs across the state. I've been giving presentations in a lot of different spaces. I'm helping connect people with music therapists to offer services. So please feel free to use me as a resource. That's part of I feel like it's part of my advocacy and my passion for the field and for helping to serve the clients in our state. So if you have questions, I know 4 minutes, this is kind of always my style. I over prepare and then have less time for questions, but I'm also happy to stay on after. If there are questions, we will entertain them now in the chat, and we can answer if you have any comments or suggestions as well. It doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment. We welcome any feedback that you have. Emily, do you have any closing thoughts?
Just that it was a pleasure to be here with everyone today, and I hope that what I said made sense.
We're just so glad to spread, music there. We're both very passionate about our work, and we both love our work. I mean, and we're lucky to get to do this work, and so happy to be able to spread more about music and music therapy. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. Thank you for the work that you do as well. I saw what you wrote at the beginning. Yeah. Not just the work, the care. It's the care you give. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, Julie, right? I mean, that's what's so great. You don't have to be able to use music to communicate. Like, how lucky to have this vehicle for communication. That's wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. And I hope you're able to use music in your work as well.
Well, thank you both so much. This was wonderful. Super duper informative. I don't know. I don't know if we have any other questions, but what a fantastic talk. I personally learned a lot. I'm excited about music therapy. Thank you for giving us some more background on the topic. I think the future is bright here at Southern and elsewhere for this particular therapeutic avenue. I mean, I love music. Everyone, it's a great tool. I'm excited
Right?
you guys are
How
kind of
wonderful to
spreading the
use
word
something
and
you
do it.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that all the time. Like, I think we have the best jobs. They're not always easy. But, like, I get to make music all day long in different ways.
How
Like, how
fun is that?
lucky.
How fun is that?
It is. We are. I think the same thing, Heather. I mean, yes, there are moments where I'm like, oh
Oh,
my
for sure.
God, a lot, just a lot of, sometimes it feels like a lot to carry. But yeah, very, very lucky to be doing something that is
Yeah.
powerful and fun and amazing and can make such a difference.
I think your clients and their families are lucky too. So thank you
Thanks,
guys for
Steve.
doing such great work and coming to talk with us today at our Science of Autism series. I hopefully everybody learned a lot. I think they did. Um, and yeah, I think that's a wrap, unless anybody else has any other questions. Eileen,
No,
any?
I don't see any other questions. I just want to say thank you guys for coming. And that last video really made me smile.
Me too.
It's just the cutest. It's my one of my favorite music therapy videos. Great. I'm glad we kept that in there. Thank you.
Yeah, anything to make your Fridays happy.
Right. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And again, thank you for having us as well. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you for such a great talk.